The hero of our story was killed by the gods when he tried to stand against them to protect humanity. However, that was not the end. He traveled back in time and got another chance to prepare humanity to face the gods who will attack them in the future. Will he succeed? And will humanity be able to defeat the gods? This is what we will find out in today's story. Our story begins with a group of gods. One of them remarks that it's the first time she's seen a god speak in such a way, adding that he's only a demigod. Another god responds by saying he believes this demigod thinks he can kill a true god. We then see the person they're discussing standing before one of the gods, Zeus. Zeus tells him that he's young and knows nothing. He then attacks him, saying, "How dare a mere demigod like you challenge a true god?" The young man angrily replies, stating that although Zeus is a true god, he will ensure his demise today. The story then flashes back to the beginning, revealing a world turned upside down, overrun by countless monsters. Humanity quickly organized itself, preparing to resist and launch a counterattack. They used every available weapon to eliminate these creatures, bombing the areas where the monsters gathered with missiles. Everyone celebrated their salvation from the threat that had endangered their lives and existence on Earth. However, despite this counterattack, fear lingered among the people about the possibility of the monsters returning. Their fears were realized when monsters began appearing everywhere once again. No one could comprehend how this had happened, and it was then that they understood it was the end, and their lives were over. Terror spread everywhere as the monsters began hunting and killing anyone in their path. Humanity reached a point of despair, resorting only to prayer and pleading for the gods' mercy and protection. But some lost faith in the gods, claiming that no one would come to save them and that their end was inevitable. At this moment, the gods appeared, witnessing the events unfolding in the mortal world. When the people saw them, they felt safe and rejoiced at their arrival to rescue them from the monsters. But what happened next defied all expectations. Everyone was shocked to find that the gods, who had come to protect them, began attacking them instead, proving to be the real danger. One of the gods is shown destroying everything around her, stating that the messengers sent to Earth had been ineffective, forcing the gods to intervene personally. Poseidon, the king of the seas, then appears, declaring that he hasn't left his domain in ages and treats humans as mere playthings for his amusement. Zeus then suggests to Poseidon that they hold a competition to toy with humanity. Additionally, the four horsemen appear on their steeds, attacking people with their legendary swords. News spreads everywhere, and warning messages urge people to immediately seek shelter. The four, gods and horsemen, continue their destruction, leaving humanity's hope resting solely on one god who might save them. Meanwhile, as people flee in every direction, a figure is seen fighting one of the gods. This figure soon appears on screens, and people recognize him as the last god of Daxia, named Lin Fan. When the gods see him, one of the goddesses remarks that now there's only a demigod left, and that the messengers had failed in their duty. Zeus offers Lin a piece of land to rule over, but Lin responds by asking if they've ever heard a famous saying. Zeus asks him what saying he's referring to. Lin replies, "In the land of Daxia, gods are forbidden to enter." We return to the opening scene, where the gods mock Lin for being a mere demigod. Zeus begins attacking him, questioning his audacity to challenge true gods. Despite Lin's resistance and perseverance, Poseidon succeeds in wounding him with his weapon. The people witness this and lose all hope of surviving the monsters and the gods toying with them. Yet Lin, with his dying breath, declares that he will never accept defeat. Drops of his blood fall one by one from his body, impaled on Poseidon's spear. These drops gather to form a pool of blood on the roof of a classroom. At the same moment, a young man in the classroom angrily slams the desk in front of him, exclaiming, "Cursed gods!" He then raises his voice, announcing to everyone that he will kill a god today. His classmates are shocked by his words, while their teacher looks annoyed by Lin's behavior. The teacher asks him if his nerves are still on edge, and if he's been having nightmares again during his usual naps in the back of the classroom. But Lin stands there, bewildered, thinking about how he was just fighting Zeus and the other gods, wondering how he ended up here. He looks out the window and sees that everything outside appears normal. No red skies and no cracks leading to the realm of the gods. When he checks the date, he is shocked to find it's November 25th, 3 months before the gods' arrival. The teacher, Jiang, approaches him and asks him to stop daydreaming. He responds with a greeting, saying he's happy to see her. She hits him hard with the book in her hand and sarcastically asks what there is to be happy about, urging him to stop joking. She then asks if he knows why sea levels have been rising and the weather has been warming in recent years. He replies that these are signs the gods will soon arrive, bringing creatures from their realm with them. His classmates laugh at him, saying he's lost his mind from too much sleep and needs psychological help for these delusions. Jiang mocks him, calling him naive and superstitious, and sarcastically asks if the gods he sees in his dreams have told him his exam scores. Lin responds that he wasn't dreaming, he's been reborn. Lin continues, declaring that this time, he will save Daxia from the gods and demons. Even if he has to fight Zeus himself, he won't let them enter Daxia again. Suddenly he stops and thinks aloud, saying he only has 3 months left and needs to prepare thoroughly. Jiang calls for help, announcing that she has a student who's lost his mind and asks for immediate assistance. At that moment, Lin dashes out, saying he needs to find someone urgently. After Lin leaves, Jiang tells the students in the back row that sleeping during class is forbidden, joking that Lin went crazy from oversleeping. The scene shifts to another setting, where an important official speaks about the increasing reports of strange phenomena in the country. He is revealed to be Jin, the commander of the Luzhou military region. Jin asks one of his officers about the situation in his area, and whether there have been any unusual reports. The officer responds that there are no reports of anything abnormal, and that the situation is under close surveillance. During this exchange, Jin receives a call. When he answers, he hears someone addressing him as Uncle Jin, expressing happiness to hear his voice, and that he's still alive. Jin replies that he's not interested in buying anything. However, Jin is stunned when the caller reveals they know him well, describing him as a 5-star general, and mentioning specific details, like a mole on his chest and scars from bullet wounds on his abdomen, shoulder, and thigh from border wars. Jin rises angrily, slamming his desk, and demands to know who this person is and how they know such details. The caller responds that Jin doesn't need to know his identity for now because they'll meet very soon, asking him to consider what he said a prophecy from the heavens. 10 minutes later, Jin gathers all the officers for an emergency meeting. One of them asks why and what's happening. Jin replies that a child called him out of the blue, claiming to be a god from the future, predicting a 7-magnitude earthquake in Gudaiju within an hour. The officers mock this statement, saying the child must have read too many novels and that no one in this era would believe in gods. Meanwhile, Lin is shown walking, saying that General Jin is a key figure in the military, and that gaining his trust is the first step in preparing for the gods' invasion. Lin hopes Jin will contact him after the prophecy he shared comes true. Suddenly, Lin notices a strange opening in the wall, resembling a portal to another world. From it emerges a monstrous creature that tries to attack him. Lin is struck with fear at the sight, exclaiming that this is very bad, as it means the gods' messengers have already begun to arrive. The monster moves closer to Lin, appearing ready to kill him. Lin remarks that he has been reborn and doesn't know if his powers have returned, but he sees this as a good chance to test his current strength against the creature. With ease, he strikes the creature down, killing it instantly. He comments that this messenger is far weaker than the ones he faced before, but considers it a suitable prelude to Zeus's arrival. As Lin continues on his way, he hears news about the earthquake he warned Jin about, which caused a 3-meter-high tsunami. The news confirms that 15 people have died, and 23 others were seriously injured. Lin wonders how Jin will respond now. The scene shifts to Jin's office, where one of his staff members, Hong, enters with urgent news. When Jin asks what happened, she shows him the news broadcast about the earthquake and its effects. Jin is shocked to find that Lin's prophecy has come true. However, the officers present laugh, dismissing it as just a coincidence. Jin insists it's impossible to be a coincidence since Lin's details were an exact match to what happened. The officer is astonished by Jin's claim and struggles to believe it. Hong asks Jin if this means that the person who predicted the event was correct, and whether gods might actually exist in the world. Jin orders a level 1 operations directive to bring the boy in, stating that he wants to speak with him face to face. Hong assures him she will carry out the order immediately. Back at the school, Lin's parents arrive after being called by his teacher, Jiang. His father tells Jiang that he understands Lin has been acting erratically and skipping school. Jiang responds that his bad behavior is the only reason she summoned them. She points out that the university entrance exams are just a month away, emphasizing that this is a critical time and blaming Lin's actions on their upbringing. Lin's mother agrees with her, promising to discipline him better. Lin arrives at that moment and tells Jiang that his parents have nothing to do with his behavior, asking her not to blame them. His father grabs him and scolds him, demanding that he apologize to the teacher immediately for his actions. Lin begins to apologize. Suddenly, Lin's phone rings. He answers it and asks who the caller is. Jiang yells at him, furious that he brought a phone to school. Realizing the caller is from the military region, Lin gives his exact location and asks them to come pick him up, but Jiang snatches the phone from him, declaring that he will be punished for this behavior. Lin tries to explain, saying the caller is Uncle Jin from the military region, and the call must not be cut off. His classmates mock him, joking that he's completely lost his mind, thinking he's so important that Commander Jin himself would call him. Jiang grows angrier, telling Lin that she never thought she'd have to deal with him like this, and that he seems to have forgotten who he is, imagining himself as someone important. Lin's parents feel embarrassed by his actions, while Jiang tells him she'll wait and see who comes to take him. At that moment, the sound of police cars and a helicopter fills the air outside the school. Hong is aboard the helicopter, instructing her team to locate the person they're here to retrieve, specifying that he's in classroom 3, and to handle the situation with the utmost care. Students and staff at the school film the helicopter, speculating about its purpose. Jiang stands in shock, wondering if this is an anti-terrorism operation. The students in the classroom gather by the window, awestruck by the helicopter, speculating that it must be part of an important mission. Hong and her team arrive at the school, where Jiang confronts them, demanding to know why they're there. Hong informs Jiang that they are the security unit for the regional military commander's office and orders all civilians in the area to evacuate immediately. When Hong reaches Lin, she doesn't realize he is the person they're looking for and asks why he is still standing there instead of leaving. Lin greets her by name and remarks that it's been a long time since they last met. Hong, surprised, asks how he knows her name. Lin introduces himself, saying he is Lin Fan, the person they came for. Hong immediately orders all forces to salute Lin, joining them in the gesture herself. Lin tells her there's no need to be so formal. At this moment, Lin's parents stand in shock, asking what's happening and whether the soldiers are really saluting their son. Meanwhile, Lin's classmates speculate if he's a wanted criminal. One of them points out that it's impossible for a security unit to treat a criminal this way. Hong shakes hands with Lin, informing him that General Jin has requested his presence to discuss some matters personally. Jiang angrily asks Lin what trouble he's gotten himself into. Lin reassures her, saying he's leaving to handle matters that will save the world. Lin boards the helicopter with Hong, bidding farewell to his parents and Jiang, telling them he'll be away for a while. Jiang, still trying to process the situation, mutters that the world has gone completely mad. The helicopter takes off, and Hong gives orders to return to General Jin's office. Upon arrival at the office, Hong informs General Jin of their arrival with Lin. The first thing Jin says, while smoking his cigar, is a demand for Lin to prove that gods truly exist. Lin sits down and replies that he can prove it, but the problem is that Jin isn't ready to hear what he has to say. Hong interjects, defending Jin as a great leader, and questions how Lin dares to speak to him that way. Lin responds by saying he knows Jin better than she does. He goes on to reveal that Jin was the first to notice the changes in the world after the gods' invasion, and was the first 5-star general to fall to Poseidon, the sea god. Jin is stunned by Lin's mention of a divine invasion. Lin tells Jin that the gods will invade the world in 3 months, which is why he sought him out so urgently. However, Lin adds that Jin's authority is limited and won't be enough to help significantly. Lin requests a meeting with the head of state himself. Jin replies that the president is the highest authority in Daxia, and it's impossible to meet him simply because Lin asks to. Lin counters by asking if he could meet the president if he proves the existence of gods. Jin extinguishes his cigar and says, "All right, but first, tell me who you are." Lin states that he is someone born 15 years in the future. He explains that he witnessed Daxia's collapse with his own eyes, how it became nothing, its citizens bowing before the gods, offering their souls, worshipping them, and living as lifeless servants. Lin adds that during that time, he was the leader of Daxia's 5 guardians, the supreme commander of the Asian Alliance, the unified army general of Daxia, and the saintly general of 6 stars, with titles like God of War of Daxia, God Slayer, and Shura God. Jin comments that these are impressive titles, and repeats Lin's claim about being the saintly general of 6 stars and the God of War of Daxia, jokingly asking if he should salute him in the future. Lin replies that there's no need because by the time Lin rose to prominence, Jin had already died. However, Lin adds that before Jin's death, Lin served as his last personal guard. Jin sarcastically remarks that he must be crazy to believe this, and gamble everything on Lin's words. He then asks how Lin plans to prove the existence of gods. Lin replies that they need to bring Jin's guards and go with him to a specific location he will identify. Jin complies, and they set off in vehicles to the site Lin mentioned. When they arrive, Jin asks what's special about this location that will prove the god's existence. Lin tells him to wait a little longer, promising that he'll know soon enough. Lin approaches a specific tree at the site, recalling that he knew the first messenger from the gods was discovered here. Confident that this is the right place, Lin instructs the men to blow up the tree. When the men ask Jin for confirmation, he orders them to follow Lin's instructions. They aim their weapons at the tree and destroy it. At that moment, a portal similar to the one Lin had seen in the wall earlier appears. Jin and Hong stand frozen in disbelief, unable to comprehend what they are witnessing. Lin explains that this portal is used by messengers sent by the gods. As they watch, a large number of monsters begin emerging from the portal. The general's guards immediately stand in front of the monsters to protect him and open fire. However, the bullets have no effect on the creatures, which proceed to attack and kill the guards. Jin is horrified by the monster's immunity to bullets and asks where these creatures came from. Hong quickly steps in front of Jin to shield him, urging him to get into the car immediately as the situation is too dangerous. Lin reassures them not to worry, stating that he can handle these messengers with ease. He grabs a massive sword and tells them to stand back and watch. Lin leaps high into the air, bringing the sword down on the monsters as he lands, cutting them down one by one. Jin and Hong watch in stunned silence as Lin fights, with Hong commenting on his incredible strength. Once Lin has defeated all the monsters, he rests the sword on his shoulder and asks Jin for his thoughts. Jin replies that while he is shocked by what happened, it still doesn't prove the existence of gods. Lin smiles and tells Jin he will show him what comes next. He swings his sword in a circular motion, creating another rift in the air. This causes a fissure to appear in the mountain before them. Rocks shift, revealing a human skull. Jin, upon seeing this, is struck speechless and frozen with shock. The sky turns red, and the skeleton begins to emerge fully, revealing its massive size. The scene transitions to Jin, Lin, and the general returning from the site to the presidential headquarters. Upon exiting the car, Jin informs Lin that President Zhang Mukai is inside waiting for him, and that they will meet him together. When they enter, they find President Mukai waiting. After Jin salutes him, Mukai asks about Lin. Lin steps forward, introduces himself as a third-year student from Ji High School, and greets the president. Mukai asks if what he heard from Jin is true, that Lin requested this meeting for an important matter concerning the nation's survival, and what this matter is. Lin replies that the gods will descend to Earth in 3 months, destroying mountains and daylight, and causing the nation to fall entirely. Other officials present in the hall react to Lin's words. One dismisses it as meaningless drivel and asks how he dares to make such claims. Another questions if Lin came to mock them. A scientist in the group approaches Jin, asking if he brought this person here to waste their time with baseless claims. Jin replies that he didn't want to believe it either, but Lin is likely telling the truth, and he trusts him. Lin tells them that he is a reborn individual and one of Daxia's future guardians. He adds that they believe this war is either unreal or far away, but he has seen it himself and witnessed humanity's extinction. Despite his warnings, the officials remain skeptical, prompting Lin to caution them that if they are not prepared within 3 months, the same fate will befall them. One official yells that Lin is taking them for fools if he expects them to believe him. At this point, President Mukai demands silence from everyone and turns to Lin, asking how he can prove his claims. Lin responds that he can provide evidence. He gestures to Hong, instructing her to bring the proof. Hong enters carrying a device, which turns out to be a recording device containing footage of everything that happened with the tree. Lin tells them they need to watch the evidence. After the events are shown, everyone in the room is stunned. They ask what these creatures are, and whether what they saw is real or just a movie trailer. The scientist, Shen, comments that the final scene revealed a human skeleton, but a natural human could not possibly be that tall. Lin clarifies that it is not human, explaining that these are other, larger, and stronger beings. He adds that if they wish, they can call them gods, as they are humanity's future enemies. However, the attendees continue to deny the possibility. One declares it impossible, while another claims the appearance of these creatures is unrealistic, accusing the video of being fake. Jin then turns to Shen, asking about the samples he sent him for analysis in his lab and whether the results are ready. Shen asks if he means the samples sent an hour ago. Shen says the results are in, but he hasn't had enough time to review them yet. He opens his device to check the details. Upon seeing the results, Shen asks Jin what exactly he sent, as the findings seem illogical. Jin informs him that the samples were from the skeleton they had just seen. Shen shouts, asking how Jin acquired such samples, then remarks that such a discovery could rewrite everything they know about the world. President Mukai intervenes, asking everyone to stop arguing, his expression showing concern. He then asks Lin why, if this skeleton truly belongs to a god, it has been on Earth for over 5,000 years. Lin replies that the skeleton belongs to an 8th-ranked god of strength, who was slain by Kwafu and thrown into the sea. Shen asks Lin if he is referring to the Kwafu mentioned in myths. Lin confirms, stating that ancient gods indeed existed, and that when the gods invaded the Blue Star in the past, it was the combined forces of the Eastern war gods who managed to repel them. He adds, however, that unfortunately, after that battle, those forces perished entirely, and even if some survived, they are now in deep slumber. President Mukai firmly declares that in that case, they will stand against the gods and fight with all their might. Lin feels great relief and joy upon realizing that President Mukai believes him. Mukai tells him he does believe him but still has one question. Why do the gods want to invade Earth in the first place? Lin explains that gods differ from humans. While humans gain strength through physical exercise, gods derive their power from the faith humans have in them. Therefore, Earth, with its billions of inhabitants, is a treasure trove for them. Mukai understands the reason and declares that he will not allow these gods to destroy the civilization their ancestors built with their blood. He then appoints Lin as the supreme commander and tells him he can use all the country's resources to protect the nation from the gods' threat. Lin salutes Mukai, promising never to let him down and to succeed in his mission. Mukai asks Lin what his first step will be. Lin replies that the first attack will come via the ocean, so they need to build an iron wall to protect themselves. He adds that before starting this project, he wants to issue a national call to inspire the people. Soon, an announcement is made across all television channels and social media platforms, stating that the government has decided, after consultations, to recruit 50 million soldiers. Lin is featured on a program where the host introduces him as the country's supreme commander and announces that he will deliver a speech to the nation. Lin's family watches the program on TV. His mother asks if this is really their son, Lin. His father, still in disbelief, wonders how their son became the supreme commander. Lin's teacher, Jiang, and his former classmates also watch the program, unable to believe that Lin has become the supreme commander. They suspect there must be some mistake. Lin begins his speech by addressing the citizens, announcing that the nation has declared a state of emergency. He informs them that the reason is the imminent invasion of the gods and that they must prepare for war. When the soldiers hear the speech, they struggle to grasp its meaning, questioning the nature of the war against the gods and where these gods would even come from. Viewers watching the broadcast find the idea illogical, dismissing it as madness, and wondering how humans could possibly fight gods. Lin continues his speech, urging everyone to fight for their survival because the gods are coming to invade. He calls on everyone to join the army immediately. Following this speech, many young people feel the gravity of the situation and realize they must not fear the invaders. Determined, they decide to enlist in the army to defend their homeland. Lin then informs President Mukai that the announcement phase is complete and it's time to proceed to the next step. Mukai asks him about his plan. Lin explains that constructing the iron wall will require vast amounts of iron, mentioning that he knows of a mine where they can source these quantities. He requests authorization to mobilize the military. Mukai grants him full authority. The army mobilization begins, with forces moving to their positions via trucks and aircraft. During the journey, Jin tells Lin that the area they are about to enter is a conflict zone with the Turtle Nation and asks about Lin's plan. Lin replies that they will reclaim the land, of course. Hong is startled by his response and asks if he's insane to declare war on the Turtle Nation as well. Lin calmly replies that he's not insane, but the area contains the mine they need, and it's crucial for their defense strategy. Jin, smoking his cigar, reflects for a moment before commenting that he's been waiting for this opportunity and that reclaiming the mine will be justification enough for war. At that moment, their convoy comes under attack, and the driver informs Jin that the Turtle Nation is firing at them. Lin orders the 1st Battalion to advance and neutralize the sources of fire, while the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Battalions handle defensive tasks. The troops move forward, successfully silencing the enemy fire and ending the attack on the leaders. Lin steps out of the vehicle, but Hong follows him, warning that the Turtle Nation has tens of thousands of soldiers in the area, while their own forces are limited. Lin reassures her, saying she should leave it to him as he has a plan. Hong asks what the plan is. Lin requests remotely detonated bombs. When Hong asks about his intentions, he tells her to wait and see. Meanwhile, Turtle Nation soldiers are shown prepared with their weapons, with their commander ordering them to hold their positions and prevent any breaches. Lin and Hong surprise the soldiers by approaching from behind. Lin greets them with a smile. One of the soldiers identifies them as Daxian forces and orders his men to raise their weapons and kill them immediately. Lin uses his regenerative powers to form a protective shield, deflecting the bullets back at the soldiers. Lin then leads Hong to another location. When she asks why they are there, he requests the bombs. Hong hands over the bombs, wondering what he intends to do with them. Lin takes the bombs and heads toward the mine, recalling that hundreds of monsters had been dormant there in his previous life. He begins digging and planting the bombs, thinking that if he can awaken the monsters early, they'll eliminate the Turtle Nation. After completing his task, Lin plans to use the ensuing chaos to seize the mine and secure victory. Lin whistles to draw the Turtle Nation soldiers to the site, and they soon arrive at his and Hong's location. As the soldiers approach, Lin activates the detonator, causing a massive explosion. The soldiers fall to the ground, shielding themselves from the blast, while Lin and Hong retreat from the scene. The ground begins to crack, and monsters emerge from the fissures. The soldiers are caught off guard by the appearance of these creatures, and before they can react, the monsters attack and annihilate them. Meanwhile, Lin's defensive forces continue battling the Turtle Nation soldiers, finding the overwhelming numbers making it increasingly difficult to hold the line. A soldier from the Daxia forces decides to take the bombs and sacrifice himself to blow up the Turtle Nation soldiers. However, he is stunned to see the Turtle Nation soldiers running away from the monsters, pleading for help. He stands frozen, unable to comprehend what is happening. The scene shifts to Jin, who observes the situation through his binoculars. He sees the creatures attacking the Turtle Nation soldiers, but cannot understand why these monsters have appeared now. Lin and Hong arrive, and Lin informs Jin that he is the one who released the creatures. Hong explains that Lin did it to make the monsters attack their enemies. Lin adds that thanks to the current situation, the enemies won't be able to hold out for long, allowing them to reclaim the disputed land. Jin expresses his admiration for Lin's plan, telling him that his respect for him grows day by day. Lin laughs, saying that what he did isn't that impressive and that he still has much to learn from Jin. At that moment, a soldier rushes over to inform them that the monsters have wiped out a group of Turtle Nation soldiers and are now heading toward them. Hong panics, while Jin moves quickly to handle the situation. Lin calms everyone, takes his sword, and heads alone toward the monsters. Meanwhile, the monsters attack the Daxia soldiers ferociously, causing fear and panic. The Turtle Nation soldiers, observing the scene, laugh gleefully, with one saying that even though they've lost the battle, Daxia will fall entirely. Despite their fear, the Daxia forces continue to fight the monsters, with one soldier standing bravely, declaring that he will fight to the death. Lin arrives and tells the soldier to rest and leave the matter to him. The soldier warns Lin that these monsters are incredibly dangerous, and urges him to leave for his safety, insisting that they will defend him. Lin reassures the soldier before charging toward the monsters. Using his sword with exceptional skill, he slays the creatures one by one. The soldier watches in amazement, unable to believe that Commander Lin can single-handedly face these ferocious creatures. The Turtle Nation soldiers, also witnessing Lin's actions, are astonished. One asks who he is, and another replies that he must be so powerful that even the monsters cannot stand against him. Suddenly they see Lin leaping high into the air, reaching the highest point to observe the monsters below. After the creatures gather beneath him, Lin moves through the air, performing a powerful circular slash with his sword. This action creates a massive fissure in the ground beneath the monsters, causing them to fall into it one after another. At that moment, a photographer at the scene remarks that Commander Lin possesses supernatural abilities and decides to capture this heroic moment. As Lin lands on the ground, the soldiers cheer for him, hailing him as Daxia's unrivaled guardian. Lin stands up and orders the troops to secure the disputed area and capture as many enemy soldiers as possible. The Daxia forces immediately begin executing the orders, while the Turtle Nation soldiers attempt to flee. However, they are shocked to find Lin blocking their path, using his sword to slice one of them in half. Lin stands before them, pointing his sword in their direction, declaring that if they want to survive, they must surrender immediately. All of them drop to the ground and surrender, and Lin tells them an old Daxian saying, "The wise adapt to the times," suggesting they can do the same. Hong arrives, informing Lin that she has counted the prisoners and found their number to be 120,000. She asks about his plan for them. Lin replies that he will send them to the mine to extract iron and build the wall. Hong asks if he intends to turn them into laborers, to which Lin responds that it's the best option for them, rather than sending them north to harvest potatoes. The scene transitions to a new setting inside a large building in Turtle Nation territory. A video documenting the monsters' attack on Turtle Nation soldiers in the disputed region is shown. It turns out the video is being played during a defense leadership meeting in Turtle Nation, where the minister asks the attendees about the fate of the soldiers guarding the mine. One official replies that the report indicates Daxia forces launched a surprise attack, leaving the soldiers no choice but to surrender. The minister becomes enraged, yelling and calling the soldiers incompetent, pointing out how much effort was previously exerted to seize Daxia's mine. The minister adds furiously that not only did Daxia reclaim the mine, but they also captured 100,000 of their soldiers. He slams the table in anger, calling the situation a disgrace to the entire nation. An official tries to calm him, suggesting that they have over 100 warships and could declare war on Daxia. Another official proposes that Daxia's resource-rich lands would be easy spoils to seize in a single operation. The minister contemplates for a moment before announcing that they will wage war against Daxia to the bitter end. Back in Daxia, work continues on Lin's plan to extract iron. A worker informs Lin that operations have begun, but one of the teams has encountered a problem. Lin asks about the nature of the issue, and the worker explains that they've discovered something unusual and asks Lin to see it for himself. The worker leads Lin to the problematic site, where a team's excavator has struck an unyielding, strange stone, halting their progress. The workers gather around the stone, speculating on its unusual hardness, which they've never seen before. When Lin arrives at the site, the workers greet him and step aside to let him inspect the stone. Lin asks the worker if this is the stone they found, and the worker confirms, but also mentions they discovered something else. The worker takes Lin to examine the other discovery, a metal door with the name Jinshin inscribed on it. Upon seeing the name, Lin's face reveals shock and fear. Lin recalls that Jinshin caused destruction and catastrophes in Daxia before the gods descended in his previous life. Realizing the severity of the situation, Lin decides it cannot be ignored. Using his radio, he contacts Jin, requesting the immediate dispatch of 2 battalions to the engineering team's site. Jin agrees to the request and confirms that he will send the forces immediately. When the requested troops arrive, they stand before Lin, awaiting orders. Lin informs them that something abnormal is happening at the site and orders them to secure the area and prevent anyone from approaching. At that moment, Lin hears the workers talking about a strange noise, as if something inside the stone is moving. Suddenly, a strange box emerges from the stone, ascending rapidly into the air. Everyone, including Lin, is stunned by the sight, not expecting this to happen so suddenly. The troops immediately begin firing at the box, urging Lin to step back for his safety. Despite the intense gunfire, the box remains intact until it abruptly shatters, revealing Jinshin. Jinshin begins attacking everyone present. Initially, they believe it's a ghost and try to flee in panic. Jinshin grabs one of the workers, biting his neck, causing him to collapse to the ground, screaming in agony as everyone watches in horror. Lin draws his sword, ordering everyone to retreat immediately, explaining that this entity is a demonic being. Lin uses his abilities, directing a beam of light from his sword to slice Jinshin in half, but the attack has no effect whatsoever. Lin realizes that Jinshin possesses extraordinary power. Jinshin launches a counterattack, wielding a similar weapon against Lin. The soldiers shout warnings, but Lin quickly uses his spiritual shield technique to block the attack. The soldiers, amazed by Lin's skill, grow increasingly convinced that he is a genius and an unparalleled leader. Lin realizes that the current location is unsuitable for continuing the battle against Jinshin and decides to lure him to a more advantageous place. Using his ability to leap great distances, Lin jumps away, successfully drawing Jinshin to follow him. The scene shifts to Jin and Hong, where Jin is reviewing a report on the progress of the iron wall construction. He comments on the remarkable speed of the work. Hong responds that the defeat inflicted on the Turtle Nation has accelerated the progress and that everything is under Lin's control. Suddenly, a soldier rushes in with a worried expression, delivering bad news. Jin demands details, and the soldier reports that the Turtle Nation's naval fleet is heading toward them and has already reached the shore, preparing to land on Daxian soil. Jin, enraged, questions their audacity and orders the soldier to prepare for battle immediately. The forces begin attacking the naval fleet, igniting a fierce battle to repel the Turtle Nation's assault. Meanwhile, Lin moves farther away, continuing to lure Jinshin behind him. From a high vantage point, he notices the Turtle Nation's assault on the shore. He receives a call from Jin, who informs him of the situation and explains their efforts to prevent the fleet from landing. Lin instructs Jin to pull back the frontline forces and redeploy them to the ashore region, leaving Jin puzzled. Jin asks Lin for the reason, and Lin simply replies that he has a plan. Shortly after, Jinshin reaches Lin and attacks him, but Lin easily dodges the assault. Lin thinks to himself that Jinshin awakened prematurely and hasn't reached his full power yet, though he remains incredibly strong and difficult to defeat. Lin moves again, attempting to draw Jinshin to another location, contemplating how to exploit him for a different purpose. Meanwhile, the battle on the shore continues, but the Daxian forces receive orders from Jin to retreat, which they execute immediately. Seeing the Daxian forces retreat, the Turtle Nation soldiers mock them, calling them cowards. Suddenly, the soldiers are stunned to see Lin descending directly among them from above, with Jinshin in pursuit. Jinshin begins attacking Lin amidst the Turtle Nation soldiers, and Lin skillfully blocks his strikes. The soldiers respond by opening fire on both of them. To their surprise, Lin vanishes before their eyes, evading the gunfire entirely, which instead strikes Jinshin. Enraged, Jinshin turns his fury on the surrounding soldiers, killing many of them. The remaining soldiers watch in horror, describing Lin as a monster himself because of his mysterious disappearance. The surviving forces rapidly retreat to their ships to escape the relentless attacks of the monstrous Jinshin. However, Jinshin continues to chase them, killing anyone he can catch, while Lin observes from a distance, remarking that these soldiers are perfect targets for Jinshin's wrath. Lin adds that there's no need to risk his life while he can stand back and watch the battle unfold. At that moment, a soldier fires a rocket at Jinshin, but Jinshin deflects it with his hand, sending it back toward a group of soldiers. The explosion causes massive casualties. On board the ships, the Turtle Nation's commander observes the events through his binoculars, commenting that it's unbelievable that Daxia unleashed such a strange and powerful creature on them. The commander issues an immediate order to direct all the ship's weapons at Jinshin. A barrage of missiles is launched toward Jinshin, exploding around him. The commander feels victorious, declaring that they have finally eliminated the creature. But suddenly, Jinshin emerges unscathed, surrounded by a strange aura radiating an unnatural energy. To everyone's shock, the soldiers attacked by Jinshin begin rising from the ground. Their bodies are bleeding profusely, even from their eyes, yet the blood does not drip to the ground. Instead, it ascends toward the sky. When Lin sees the soldiers under Jinshin's control, he immediately realizes this means Jinshin's life force is being drained. Acting quickly, Lin uses his sword to eliminate all the soldiers affected by Jinshin, breaking his control over them. Lin decides this is the perfect moment to confront Jinshin and put an end to him. He dives directly into the battle, launching an attack. However, Jinshin counters with a powerful strike, knocking Lin to the ground effortlessly. Lin starts to think about how strong Jinshin remains, even in his weakened state. Lin rises again, attempting another attack, but Jinshin easily blocks it and forcefully throws Lin away. Undeterred, Lin stands his ground, remarking that this level of strength is exactly what he expected from Jinshin. On board the ships, the Turtle Nation's commander observes the battle through his binoculars, incredulously questioning if Lin is insane or if he went there to die. Two of his soldiers laugh, with one commenting that if their large numbers couldn't stop the monster, Lin is heading straight to his doom. The other soldier admits he's only interested in seeing how this unfolds. Lin continues moving swiftly around Jinshin in all directions, avoiding his grasp and attacks, determinedly declaring that this will be Jinshin's end. With precision and skill, Lin maneuvers behind Jinshin and lands a devastating blow with his sword. Lin yells in fury, commanding Jinshin to return to the earth from which he came. With one final, powerful strike, Lin splits Jinshin in two, shouting triumphantly that he must die. On board the ships, the soldiers are overwhelmed by what they witnessed, amazed that Lin managed to kill the beast. They remark that despite being human like them, Lin possesses unbelievable strength. The fleet commander, frustrated and disheartened, wonders aloud how they can face an enemy of such power. He immediately orders the fleet to retreat and move away from Daxia's shores. The ships begin withdrawing quickly, heading back toward Turtle Nation, but Lin doesn't let them escape, rushing after them, declaring that they are miners who dared to step onto his land, and he won't allow them to flee. Using his sword, Lin slices one of the ships in half, destroying its engine and setting it ablaze. The crew of another ship sees the destruction and realizes they're about to collide with the burning ship, prompting them to reverse course quickly to avoid the same fate. Meanwhile, the crew of a third ship is paralyzed with confusion, watching as the fire consumes one of their vessels. At that moment, they hear a voice calling from above. Looking up, they see Lin standing atop the ship's mast. Lin tells them that they are now his prisoners, and that any attempt to escape will mean their deaths without mercy. The crew realizes this is the same man who killed the monster before their eyes moments ago. One of the soldiers asks the commander what they should do now, and the commander replies that they have no choice but to surrender, as they have witnessed Lin's power firsthand. The entire crew surrenders and is transported to the mine, where they begin working alongside other prisoners. Jin and Hong join Lin, with Jin commenting that he had been worried about not having enough laborers for the mine, but is now relieved that the problem has been solved. Lin replies that Turtle Nation has invaded their lands repeatedly, and now they will work for Daxia as a form of penance, continuing this service until their deaths. In another scene, the Turtle Nation's minister is furious, yelling at his commanders and calling them useless for allowing their entire fleet to become prisoners of Daxia. The minister demands to know how the commander dares to stand before him after such a disaster. The commander apologizes, explaining that they were unaware Daxia had such a powerful creature, which was the main reason their plans failed. The minister rejects this explanation, slapping the commander and declaring that excuses are pointless now. The commander apologizes again, admitting his mistake and agreeing that the minister is right. He suggests sending a team of their superpowered elite to Daxia as a countermeasure to recover their position. The minister pondered the matter, convincing himself that deploying the special team was the right solution. He wondered how he had overlooked this option initially. Back in Daxia, work at the mine continued steadily, with just 1 year and 20 days remaining before the gods' descent to Earth. Lin was at the site, explaining that they now had enough workers for digging and transporting rocks, and the mine area was ready. However, he pointed out the potential for unknown monsters to awaken at any moment. Lin realized that if he continued facing every challenge alone, he wouldn't be able to endure, prompting him to form a special team capable of killing gods as he does. At this moment, General Jin arrived with Dr. Shen. Shen told Lin that he heard Lin had been looking for him. Lin responded that he needed Shen's help to locate individuals with extraordinary powers. Shen was surprised by the request, but Lin reassured him, explaining that he had witnessed Shen accomplish this in his previous life. Shen confirmed his ability to achieve this, but mentioned that he would need a subject to conduct experiments on to get the desired results. Lin assured Shen it wasn't a problem, and promised to find a suitable individual for the experiments. The next day, Lin stood on a busy street, contemplating how challenging it would be to find the right person for Dr. Shen's experiments. He had no clear idea where to start. As Lin continued walking, he He approached a large door, reflecting on how his strength had been depleting significantly. At that moment, a terrified girl emerged from the door, running toward him and pleading for help. The girl threw herself into Lin's arms, begging him to save her from the men chasing her. Lin noticed two men running after her, with one threatening to break her legs if she ran away again. The girl implored Lin to protect her. When Lin asked what was going on, she explained that she didn't know them and that they were trying to abduct her. Lin asked if they could be human traffickers, but the man who had threatened her earlier responded by warning Lin not to interfere if he wanted to stay alive. Lin grabbed the man's threatening hand and informed him that he had decided to intervene, breaking his hand in the process. The other man charged at Lin with a knife, threatening to kill him. Lin didn't allow him to get close, delivering a powerful kick that sent him crashing to the ground. The two men cried out in pain, with the injured one threatening that they would return later with reinforcements. They left, repeating their threats as they retreated. Lin then asked the girl if she was all right. She confirmed she was fine and thanked him for his help. Lin told her that he was on his way to eat and suggested she head home quickly. She held onto his hand, insisting that he had saved her, so she wanted to repay him by inviting him to a meal she would prepare herself. Lin agreed and accompanied her. She prepared a variety of dishes she specialized in, telling him it was all in appreciation of his help. Lin thanked her for her effort. He began eating and was impressed with the food, telling her it was delicious, which delighted her greatly. Suddenly she laughed, revealing that she hadn't expected him to fall into the trap so easily. Lin was shocked by her words and felt intense pain in his stomach. She explained that she had poisoned the food without him noticing. Lin quickly lost consciousness, resting his head on the table. At that moment, the girl's innocent demeanor shifted as she laughed, declaring that Daxia's people were fools and easy to deceive. She grabbed a knife, twirling it skillfully, and revealed that she had been ordered by the National Council to kill him. She raised the knife, aiming it at his head. In the critical moment, Lin moved with astonishing speed, no longer on the table before her. She froze in place, confused by what had happened, only for Lin to suddenly appear behind her, asking if she truly believed she had deceived him. He grabbed her by the neck and began choking her. Struggling to speak, she asked him how he had uncovered their plan and when it had happened. Lin responded to the girl, stating that her act was overly naive and that he had uncovered her intentions from the start. However, he had pretended to cooperate to discover her true plan. Realizing she had been nothing more than a pawn in his hands, the girl shouted loudly, calling for her companions and questioning why they had delayed their intervention. Two soldiers from the Turtle Nation entered, wielding swords, and attacked Lin from behind, declaring that he would meet his end at their hands. Before the swords could reach him, Lin moved with incredible speed, causing their weapons to fall to the ground, leaving them astonished by his superhuman agility. Lin then drew his own sword and commented that they had traveled all this way just to kill him, expressing regret that he would have to disappoint them tonight. One of the soldiers warned him against being so full of himself, vowing that they would finish him no matter what, using their swords imbued with supernatural powers. Lin was taken aback when he realized they possessed special abilities. He swiftly dodged their strikes, which failed to land. The girl, frustrated by the delay, screamed at them, instructing them not to waste time on Daxia soil and demanding that they finish the mission immediately. At that moment, Lin decided against fighting and informed them that their timing was impeccable since he had been looking for volunteers for experiments. He never imagined they would offer themselves willingly. This remark enraged them, prompting them to end the standoff by using a cloning technique, creating multiple copies of themselves. Lin smiled at their move, broke the window, and leapt out into the street. One of the soldiers followed him, shouting that Lin could not escape from them, and jumped after him. The girl joined the chase, calling him a coward for running away instead of facing them. Lin continued running through the streets of Daxia until nightfall, with them relentlessly pursuing him. He, however, had been planning all along to lead them to Dr. Shen's lab, where their deaths might provide valuable samples for Shen's experiments. Upon reaching the desired location, Lin stopped running, thinking they had surrounded him. They taunted him, saying he had nowhere left to flee. The girl arrived shortly after, shouting at them to finish the job immediately. She charged at him, threatening to kill him on the spot. Lin, standing next to a large metal door, placed his hand on it. As she approached, he ripped the door off its hinges and struck her with it, sending her flying backward. As she lay on the ground, Lin approached and asked if she truly believed he was running away out of fear. He then struck her again with the door, explaining that his actions were solely to lure them to this location, calling her foolish. The other two soldiers stood in shock, unable to believe that Lin had defeated their team leader with a single blow. Enraged, one of the soldiers charged at Lin, warning that he would pay for his actions and vowing to cut off his head. As he approached, the soldier activated a technique that created thousands of clones, surrounding Lin with countless attackers at once. Lin exploited his superior speed and mocked the soldier, saying that such a useless technique wouldn't leave even a scratch on him. Suddenly, Lin found himself face to face with the soldier's original form and informed him that he did not understand the true power of a demigod. Lin then delivered a powerful strike to the soldier's abdomen, his hand piercing through to the other side, leaving the soldier stunned and unable to believe what had just happened. The remaining soldier watched everything unfold in disbelief, amazed at how Lin had transformed from a fleeing target into an unbeatable warrior. Realizing he had no chance, the soldier decided to retreat, declaring that a true hero knows when to fight another day. However, he was shocked to find Lin blocking his path, asking whether he had sought permission before attempting to leave. Left with no choice, the soldier prepared for battle, using his magic to summon fiery serpents, vowing to fight Lin to the death. Lin caught all the fiery serpents the soldier had launched at him with his bare hand. He then remarked that the flames weren't bad and sent them back toward their owner, adding that he was simply returning them to their source. The soldier fell under the impact of his own abilities. Lin decided it was time to call Shen to deal with the mess he had created. Meanwhile, the soldier lay on the ground, pleading that he didn't want to die yet. Lin spoke to Shen over the phone, informing him that he had found samples for his experiments and asking him to come to the lab gate to retrieve them. The scene shifted to Shen arriving at the lab, escorting the soldiers and their leader inside. He praised Lin's extraordinary efficiency. Lin expressed hope that Shen could one day create someone as skilled as him, to which Shen assured him he would do his best to make it happen. At the same time, Jin arrived at the lab with 2 soldiers, calling out to Lin, who was surprised to see him. Jin informed Lin that they had identified the individuals who had attempted to kill him, surprising Lin with their speed and prompting him to ask what they had discovered. Jin explained that the attackers were agents of an organization called Phoenix, based in a city known as Joy, famous for its industrial prowess. He elaborated that Phoenix was an alliance of individuals with extraordinary abilities. Jin then told Lin that he had brought 2 soldiers to join his team. The soldiers saluted Lin, with one introducing himself as Long and revealing that he possessed natural abilities. This intrigued Lin, who found it remarkable that such powers had manifested at such an early stage in his life. Jin explained that these 2 soldiers had been under his command, but that their talents would go to waste there, so he had decided they should join Lin's team. Lin thanked Jin, mentioning that he had been searching for team members, but hadn't found the right people, to which Jin expressed his satisfaction with their aligned goals. Jin responded to Lin's gratitude by saying that everyone was working for the nation's benefit, and that the best way to show gratitude was to fulfill the mission. When Lin asked about the mission, Jin revealed that the Phoenix organization wasn't just targeting Lin, but was also carrying out terrorist operations across the country. He requested Lin to eliminate them. Lin immediately agreed to the task without hesitation. They discussed the details, and Jin instructed Long and his partner, Kianse, to remain vigilant during the mission. The 3 then boarded a plane to carry out their assignment. Upon arrival, the trio stood before a massive building. One of the soldiers asked Lin about their next move, and he replied that this was Phoenix's main headquarters and that they were going to storm it. The soldiers were awestruck by Lin's courage and boldness. As they approached the headquarters, Lin instructed the guards to open the door. The guards, however, pointed their weapons at them, demanding identification and clearance. Lin immediately attacked, remarking that they were annoying and declaring that he would open the door himself. He tossed the guards aside in opposite directions and entered the building, triggering the main headquarters alarm, signaling the presence of intruders. Lin and the soldiers advanced further into the Phoenix facility. At the same time, the Turtle Nation's leaders were in a meeting discussing their progress in Daxia. One of the minister's aides reported that they had conducted over 30 attacks within Daxia, but that eliminating its leader would still require more time. At that moment, the sound of the facility's alarm, triggered by Lin's intrusion, interrupted their discussion. The minister asked for the cause of the alarm, and his aide explained that the security system had been breached. He activated the surveillance feed, and they were stunned to see Lin and his team on the screens, breaking into the building and overpowering the guards. The minister smiled, remarking that this was excellent news, as their target had come to them willingly and was now within their grasp. When the minister's aide gave Aknij an order, he subtly pointed to his neck, clearly hinting that Lin needed to be eliminated. Aknij, one of the superpowered individuals, understood the command immediately and prepared for the task. Inside the building, Lin was taking down one of the guards while speaking with Shen and Zhao. He told them that this mission was the perfect opportunity for them to develop their abilities and grow stronger. Lin encouraged them to give it their all, and they eagerly agreed with his words. Lin continued, explaining that the so-called Phoenix Society, which consisted of superpowered individuals, was nothing more than a group of weak and foolish people with no real value. However, Shen and Zhao, amazed by Lin's strength, argued that the issue wasn't with the other's weakness, but with Lin's immense power. At that moment, Lin noticed frost forming around them and saw a large ice mass emerging from a specific area. Suddenly, a massive icy structure burst out of the ground, forcing Lin to dodge quickly. He warned Shen and Zhao that an extraordinary adversary was approaching. Aknij emerged from the ice structure and clapped his hands, praising Lin for his ability to evade the deadly initial attack. Shen and Zhao stood their ground, facing him. Aknij remarked that it seemed there were other fighters with exceptional abilities. He then introduced himself as the Executioner, stating that he had come specifically to eliminate Lin. Lin didn't respond directly. Instead, he casually sat on the bodies of the guards he had defeated, telling Shen and Zhao that this was their chance to prove their worth. Motivated, they decided to confront Aknij using their abilities. Aknij laughed mockingly, claiming that Lin was so terrified he was leaving the fight to them instead of facing him personally, calling him pathetic. Zhao angrily demanded that Aknij stop spouting nonsense, asserting that they were more than capable of defeating him without anyone else's help. Aknij initiated his attack, stating that he was eager to see what they could do. Shen countered, instructing Zhao to guard his back while he prepared to finish Aknij with a single strike. Zhao agreed, using his powers to support Shen. Zhao successfully blocked all of Aknij's attacks, giving Shen the opportunity to unleash a powerful arrow aimed at Aknij. The arrow struck Aknij with lightning-like force, leading Shen and Zhao to believe they had defeated him. However, they were shocked to see Aknij unharmed, laughing at them and asserting that they had overestimated their abilities. The two stood in disbelief, with Zhao asking if Aknij's power exceeded their own. Lin then intervened, explaining that the issue wasn't Aknij's strength, but the incorrect method they were using to attack him. Aknij laughed and asked Lin if he was finally afraid after witnessing his power. Lin ignored his taunts, instructing Shen and Zhao to focus on the tattoo on Aknij's face, which he revealed to be his weakness. Aknij was visibly startled by Lin's words, fear evident on his face as he wondered how Lin had discovered his secret. This revelation motivated Shen and Zhao, who declared that they wouldn't show him any mercy. They executed their new plan. Zhao distracted Aknij with his shield, keeping him occupied, while Shen launched arrows from the opposite direction. Aknij managed to block most of the arrows with his ice shield. However, one arrow directly targeted the tattoo, striking it with precision and causing Aknij to collapse instantly, just as Lin had predicted. Shen and Zhao celebrated their successful strategy and the defeat of such a formidable foe. Lin approached them, clapping and commending their efforts, assuring them that they had exceeded his expectations. At that moment, the minister and John were watching the events unfold on the surveillance screens, observing Aknij's defeat at the hands of Lin, Shen, and Zhao. The minister, furious, demanded angrily if all the people under John's command were as incompetent as Aknij, being so easily defeated. John attempted to calm the minister, assuring him that such an incident would not happen again, and promising to send additional forces immediately to eliminate Lin and his team. However, the minister, still enraged, warned John that this would be his final chance, and failure was not an option. Standing in tension, John reflected on how dangerous Lin was, realizing the severity of dealing with someone who could so effortlessly uncover Aknij's weakness. Returning to Lin, Zhao asked him how he had identified Aknij's vulnerability. Lin explained that activating abilities required energy, and that Aknij concentrated his energy on his tattoo, making it his weak point. Zhao understood and remarked that they were still discovering their powers, having only recently started using them. Lin elaborated, explaining that everyone channels their energy differently, and during battles, it is crucial to conceal this energy to prevent the enemy from identifying it. As they walked, Lin noticed something unusual. Mud seemed to be spreading across the ground beneath their feet. He ordered Shen and Zhao to remain on alert, warning that something dangerous was happening. Suddenly, eerie hands began emerging from the ground, moving toward them in a menacing manner. These hands grabbed them from all directions, prompting Lin to warn them that reinforcements had likely arrived to attack. Indeed, strange mud-colored figures started rising from the ground and walls, launching an assault. The muddy figures struck Shen and Zhao forcefully, knocking them to the ground, while Lin stood observing, pondering the nature of these abilities. At that moment, two soldiers from the Turtle Nation appeared, armed with sharp weapons. One of them mocked Aknij, calling him weak for failing to kill those fools. The other added that they would make Lin and his team pay with their lives. Lin, with a sarcastic tone, remarked that he simply wanted more opportunities to kill their kind. One of the soldiers approached Lin, complimenting his optimism, but mockingly suggesting that he kneel and beg for mercy, as it might earn him a reprieve. Enraged, Lin retorted that the people of Daxia only kneel before the heavens, the earth, and their parents, and they would never bow to invaders. Hearing this, the second soldier charged at Lin, declaring that his words were an open invitation to death. Before the soldier could reach Lin, Shen intervened, attacking to prevent him from harming their leader. Shen vowed not to let anyone touch Lin. However, the other soldier struck Shen, sending him crashing to the ground with a powerful blow. Zhao then stepped in, attacking both soldiers with two axes he had conjured using his abilities, proclaiming that he would fight them alone. One of the soldiers used his powers to create a wall, blocking Zhao's strikes. The other soldier attacked Zhao, knocking him down as well. The Turtle Nation soldiers stood arrogantly, mocking the people of Daxia as insignificant insects unworthy of challenging the Phoenix Society. At that moment, the minister, observing the battle through the screens, turned to John, who assured him that they could now relax. Smiling confidently, the minister affirmed that the people of Daxia were nothing more than insects, unworthy of attention or fear. John informed the minister that the twins he had sent were ranked 3rd in combat strength within the Phoenix Society, and that handling a small number of Daxia fighters should have been an easy task for them. However, the reality on the battlefield was completely different. Facing the twins, one of them told Lin that his team had fallen, and that his best option now was to surrender. But Lin, enraged by what had happened to Shen and Zhao, grabbed the twins' face with his hand. Mocking him, Lin apologized sarcastically, saying that the word surrender wasn't in his vocabulary. He then delivered a powerful punch that pierced through the twins' chest, with Lin's hand emerging from the soldier's back. The other twin, horrified and screaming in disbelief at what had happened to his brother, froze in terror. The second twin asked Lin how he had managed to free himself from the restraints that had held him. Lin, giving him no time to react, attacked immediately, forcing the twin to use his abilities to create a mud wall for protection. However, the wall couldn't withstand Lin's iron fist, which shattered it and knocked the twin to the ground. The soldier fell, bleeding profusely, and expressed his disbelief at what had just happened. In the command room, the minister and John were watching the events unfold on the surveillance screens. The minister was both stunned and furious, questioning the hidden strength Lin possessed and how he was able to defeat their forces so effortlessly. Meanwhile, John stood in shock, struggling to comprehend what was happening, and stated that this was a significant humiliation for them. It didn't take long for Lin, Shen, and Zhao to reach the command room. Lin kicked the door open, leaving everyone inside in shock, and announced that he had successfully located the Phoenix Society's base. At that moment, the minister's fighters launched an attack on Lin and his team. One of them charged directly at Lin, claiming he would end him. Lin asked Zhao to hand him his axe. Taking the axe, Lin confronted the attacker with confidence and strength. Within moments, the attacker was lying on the ground, screaming in pain after Lin severed his arms. The minister and John watched in disbelief, unable to comprehend Lin's incredible power. After securing the situation, Lin instructed Shen and Zhao to lock down all exits and ensure no one escaped, but John discreetly pressed a hidden button on the desk. Suddenly, a massive metal cage descended from the ceiling, trapping Lin, Shen, and Zhao inside. John declared his victory and informed Lin that the cage was made of Shanghai stone, an unbreakable material, meaning there was no chance of escape. He then called upon a group of superpowered individuals and instructed them to incinerate Lin and his team until they were reduced to ashes. The young fighters surrounded the cage, and one of them unleashed intense flames resembling dragon fire. The fire engulfed the cage, and its overwhelming heat began melting the supposedly indestructible material, trapping Lin, Shen, and Zhao within the inferno. The minister, now reassured, praised John for his excellent performance and promised him a significant reward. John, grateful for the minister's words and reward, expressed his thanks. Confident in the celestial flames wielded by his fighters, John stated that no one could survive their power, and that Lin and his team must now have been reduced to ashes. Indeed, the flames were immensely powerful, causing even the supposedly unbreakable cage to begin melting. But suddenly, the minister's expression changed, his face displaying a mixture of fear and shock, as if he were seeing ghosts. John was staring in shock, mirroring the minister's horrified expression, as they both looked toward the direction that had captured their attention. When the scene became clear, it was revealed that Lin, Shen, and Zhao were still alive, completely unharmed by the flames. They had used shields created by Zhao's abilities to protect themselves. Lin addressed John and the minister, mockingly stating that they had started their celebration too early, as he was still alive. John, still in disbelief, responded that it was impossible. The minister, growing more irate, shouted at John, demanding to know what he was waiting for. He shoved John toward Lin, ordering him to handle the matter personally. Lin unsheathed his sword, declaring that he wanted to face all of them at once. John stood his ground, revealing his superhuman abilities as his hand turned into a gleaming golden weapon, radiating immense power. He mocked Lin, questioning how he dared to underestimate them. John then launched an attack, but Lin swiftly dodged. John followed up by transforming his hand into an extremely sharp weapon, attempting to strike Lin. Lin, however, continued evading his attacks with precision. At that moment, the minister intervened, grabbing Lin's shoulder firmly and chiding him for underestimating his power. Using his extraordinary strength, the minister hurled Lin with great force. Lin fell, but Shen and Zhao quickly rushed to catch him before he hit the ground. The minister and John expressed their temporary satisfaction, with the minister commenting that while Lin initially seemed strong, he wasn't as powerful as he appeared. John agreed, adding that Lin had been given far too much credit. Zhao asked Lin if he was all right. Lin reassured him, claiming that he was still in good shape, and taunted the minister, sarcastically calling the attack a cowardly surprise from the Japanese. The minister was enraged by the comment, hurling insults and threats at Lin, declaring that he had brought death upon himself. The minister unleashed his ability, generating powerful cyclones. Lin stood firm before the cyclone, remarking that even the Japanese leader was merely an experimental prototype of supernatural abilities. Lin then used his skill to redirect the cyclone toward the minister. The powerful winds engulfed the minister, ultimately leading to his demise. John, witnessing the scene, screamed in shock and disbelief, calling out for the minister. Seizing the moment, Lin charged at John, declaring that it was now his turn. Terrified, John fled, shouting that he didn't want to die here or now. John ran until he reached a massive hall housing a grand mythical statue. Falling to his knees before the statue, he begged for protection and salvation, addressing it as the fire god. At that moment, Lin entered the hall, sword raised and ready to strike, asking John where he thought he could run. Suddenly flames erupted from the statue, and a booming voice questioned who had dared to summon the fire god. The statue transformed into a giant phoenix with wings and a body composed entirely of fire. The phoenix's powerful wing beats created gusts strong enough to throw Lin backward, slamming him to the ground. Lin looked at the phoenix in astonishment, wondering how the Japanese had managed to possess such a divine creature within Daxia. Meanwhile, John danced with joy at the success of summoning the phoenix, considering it their final hope to eliminate Lin. The phoenix suddenly morphed into a humanoid form, appearing as a radiant woman with glowing features. She approached Lin, her expression one of curiosity, and asked why she felt a strange familiarity with the situation, as though it had happened before.